Okie dokie, gang. I see that it is now 7:05. So we'll get our presentation started. First of all, I should say really happy to be leading your December lung health nutrition presentation. This is an area that's a little bit new to me. However, although it's new, it's not too new. I do a lot of chronic disease management. So really hoping that tonight's session will be valuable for you because what we're going to be covering are two things that I am incredibly passionate about. So really helping people develop food literacy is key. And then number two, I'm wildly passionate about being in the kitchen. So, which is going to be our focus for today. So without further ado, let's get started. And I'll start, not to be rude, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Sarah Jean Noel. I have been a registered dietitian now for approximately 7 years. As I said, I do quite a bit of chronic disease management. Specifically, I do a lot of diabetes care, heart health, fatty liver. I also am support clients who are interested in exploring, let's say, a plant-based approach to eating, which is something that even myself, I've gone on a bit of a journey to be more plant-based, as well as with food skills acquisition. So all I mean by that is, again, a lot of people kind of have lost those basic cooking skills. So I do and run quite a few kids and adult cooking classes, as well as doing grocery store tours. So helping people learn how to navigate the grocery store so that they're selecting foods that are in line with their health and nutrition goals. Previous to becoming a dietitian, as you can see on the screen, you probably would have found me in a chef's coat in the back of a restaurant, chopping away, cooking away. And that was I would say my first passion was being in the kitchen, and I have over 10 years of culinary experience. So I'm a foodie through and through. I've not left, it's just changed now. And most recently, and something that I'm going to be delving into in 2024 as part of my learning, is culinary cannabis. So again, still in the food realm, but looking at how we can incorporate cannabis, because not everybody is keen about smoking cannabis, but how we can incorporate it into food and still enjoy those therapeutic benefits. So that's a little bit about me, but without further ado, let's jump into the presentation and what we'll be talking about today. So first and foremost, we will be reviewing the basics of label reading. I'm sure many of you guys are mavens or experts in this realm. So tonight will be maybe a little bit of a refresher. And for those of you who maybe don't do too much label reading, hopefully this will give you a little bit of insight as to why, especially when you have a lung condition, why it's so important to be reading those labels at the grocery store. And then for the end of our presentation, we'll be doing a fun little holiday food demo. And I'm going to show how easy it is to make really simple ingredient swaps and make a recipe more lung friendly. I see we have a hand up.
Hi, Sarah. I just have a question from a participant over the Facebook Live event.
Yes.
They are wondering if label reading is something that is disease specific, or can they label read and apply it to multiple different lung conditions as well as other diseases they might have, like diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., or is it something that they should just learn how to do and then apply it to all conditions?
So with label reading, and that's something that we're going to get into, there are differences. So if you're managing more than one condition, that's when it would be a perfect time to reach out to work with a dietitian, because some of the things that I'm going to discuss today in terms of label reading for lung conditions in general may not apply or may not be the same if, for example, you have diabetes. Every condition, for the most, and there are some conditions where in terms of label reading, it'll be quite similar, but there's some where when you look at it at face value, there seems to be some conflict that exists. And so that's when label reading becomes a bit of a challenge, and you need somebody to kind of hold your hand a little bit and show you how to navigate it. So the label reading that we'll be covering today is going to be in a general perspective for individuals with like pulmonary fibrosis or a lung condition. But if you have more than one underlying condition, that could change some of the recommendations and what you'd be targeting when you're label reading. So that's where you, again, would really want to reach out to a dietitian for that additional support. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, don't worry. We have a good amount of time together. So feel free to ask it again, or Jamie can maybe pass along my contacts, and we can talk offline. So
Yep, for sure. Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome. So let's get this party started. And we're going to start first with a question, which kind of links in a little bit to what I was just asked. Is label reading an important skill for patients with lung conditions? Which was my very first question, which we've kind of answered. And I would say absolutely, 100%. Label reading, if you have an underlying condition with your lungs, most likely there are changes in terms of your nutrient needs. So you have unique nutrient needs. So becoming knowledgeable and comfortable with label reading really empowers you to be able to select foods or food products that align best with those needs and your lung health goals. So it is absolutely a must, so that you're targeting these unique nutrient goals and needs that you have. So nutrition or food really becomes another tool in your arsenal so that you're better able to manage your condition and your symptoms. So just like the medication you take is one of the tools that you use to manage your condition, to manage the symptoms, food can be used in the exact same way for individuals or patients with lung conditions. So your follow-up question probably is, okay, well, Sarah, what are some of these nutrients that I need to keep top of mind with when I'm doing my label reading? So what we know with some lung conditions, there are some differences with the nutrients. The first is fiber. So fiber is the non-digestible part of plants. You'll often hear people, older adults, call it roughage, the roughage in the food, which is found in whole grains, fruits and vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds. And what we know about fiber as it pertains to lung health is that we actually want to lower our fiber intake. With pulmonary fibrosis medications like OFAV, there are interactions with fiber and can cause, digestive upset from diarrhea to vomiting to nausea. And so having a lower fiber intake is what is suggested. So to piggyback off of the question that was asked, so if you had, say, on top of a lung condition, you had diabetes, the opposite is true, where you would want a higher fiber diet. So you can see that there's a bit of competition. So it's about working with a dietitian for them to learn kind of all of your underlying conditions and finding kind of a middle point that's going to work best for you, where we're not aggravating and causing, that digestive upset, but we maybe still have enough fiber to benefit for blood sugar control, for example. So, but specifically for lung health, we want a lower fiber intake. Another nutrient that is also very important would be your protein intake. So conversely, with protein, we actually want a high protein intake. So we want to prioritize the foods that are high in protein. Why is that? Protein, when we consume it, it slows digestion and it increases enzyme activity for better nutrient absorption. So oftentimes nutrients aren't well absorbed. And so having a slower digestion allows, and that's what protein does, helps to slow down the digestion so your body really can maximize in terms of taking up all of those nutrients in the foods that we're eating, or an improved amount, I should say. So we want a high protein diet. Also, if you've experienced maybe some weight loss of late, you want to improve your weight or maintain your weight or muscle mass, protein is important for that so that you're maintaining your strength. So those are a few things, the two main nutrients that will be our focus when we're looking at label reading. However, there are other nutrients that are important for lung function. So that would be things like our minerals and our vitamins. So iron, folate, vitamin D, vitamin B12. So these play an important role in terms of keeping our energy up, reducing the likelihood of shortness of breath. So these aren't things that you want to overlook. Where it might be relevant from a label reading perspective is if your doctor happens to mention to you, oh, by the way, your iron is low, or you know what, I'm noticing that you have a vitamin B12 deficiency. Now that can be something that you prioritize in looking at on your nutrition facts table when you're label reading, to select foods that are also richer in those minerals and vitamins so that you can start to correct those types of deficiencies. So it could be a secondary or tertiary thing that you look at as well. And then the last point, many people with underlying lung conditions can suffer from acid reflux. So for this part, you wouldn't be looking at the nutrition facts table. Rather, you'd be looking at the ingredients list. So if you know you have any common triggers, whether that's garlic, onions, caffeine, mint, what you'd want to use is the ingredients list and check out the products, make sure that they don't have those, some of your common triggers. And so you can opt for another product, right? So those are some of the nutrients that you would want to keep top of mind when you are label reading. So now that we know which nutrients we're interested in and that are important for us, let's delve into the basics of label reading. So what are the steps? How do we even approach all of this information when we pick up a food product? So first things first, before we look at all of the different nutrients, step one is looking at the serving size. So the serving size is always at the top of the nutrition facts table. And then keep in mind that based upon that serving size, all the information below is based upon that amount. Now, why is it important? And oftentimes when I work with clients, I'm at the grocery store, people tend to skip the serving size, but why it's so important that we keep the serving size in mind at the beginning is for two reasons. First, you need to compare the serving size to what your portion size is. So for a lot of us, our portion size might be more or less than the serving size. If that's the case, so for example, let's say the nutrition facts table stated that the serving size was 1 cup, but you know, whenever you eat that particular food, you have a 2 cup portion size. Well, then now you have to double all of the other information on the nutrition facts table, right? So that it's reflective and so you're assessing the product properly. You also need to be mindful of serving size when you're comparing products. So if, for example, we have pasta, we're looking at pasta, and one pasta brand, the serving size is 50 grams, and the other one is 100 grams. Well, now we're trying to compare apples to oranges. No, we can't do that. It needs to be apples to apples. So what you might do is you might look at the pasta that's at 100 grams and divide all of the information by 2 so that you're comparing pastas of similar weight. So serving size is where we always start. The second thing we might look at is calories. So if you've been told, you need more calories, you need to gain some weight. So perhaps when you're comparing the product, that might be something you look at, of these 2 products, which one provides me with more calories? Conversely, if you're looking to lose weight, maybe you're going to select the one that's lower in calorie. And the calorie amount is based upon the indicated serving size. So that's step 1, that's step 2. Step number 3 is when we start looking at the nutrients listed on the nutrition facts table. And specifically, we're looking at the percent daily value. This is where we get the meat of the information here. And so the percent daily value shows us if a food is either high or low in a certain nutrient. So when we see a percent daily value where it's 5% or less, it's telling you that you're only getting a little bit of that nutrient. So if we're looking at the nutrition facts table on the screen, we can see that fat is at 4%. Total fat is at 4%. So it's under 5%. So for whatever this food product is, and I can't remember off the top of my head which product I selected, you are not getting a lot of fat with this product. It's under 5%. The same thing is true with sodium. If you can see, sodium is 0%. So it's 5% or less. You're only getting, you're getting virtually nothing in terms of sodium. Whereas if you're seeing a percent daily value that exceeds 15%, that's telling you that for the serving size indicated, you're getting a lot of that nutrient. So again, using that nutrition facts table on our screen, you can easily see fiber is very high with this particular product. The percent daily value is 33%, far exceeding the 15. So this product is a high fiber product. If we go down the nutrition facts table all the way down to iron, right? Iron, the percent daily value is at 57%. So very high in iron. This is a high iron food. So where the percent daily value is really beneficial is when we're looking to compare products quickly. So you can compare 2 products just by looking at their percent daily value and based upon what goals you have, what nutrient goals you have. So hopefully, those are the steps that maybe you already utilize if you're, like I said, a label reading maven or expert. If not, if this is new to you, those are the steps that you want to take as you begin to your label reading whenever you're at the grocery store. Serving size, calories, and then the percent daily value. So now that we've reviewed that, because I'm all about let's practice, we've learned something, let's practice it. Let's do a quick little exercise. Give me 1 second. There we go. So we're going to compare two breads here. We have two different white breads on the screen. And usually for lung health, we recommend white bread, refined bread. So, you know, people might just grab any white bread that they see on, you know, on the shelves and say, hey, you know, this is white bread, it's refined, it must be okay. You know, this is what I hear people telling me. So let's see if that's true. Can we just grab it off the shelf, or is it important to do our due diligence and dig a little bit further and actually read these labels? So we have Carbonate white bread on the left and Dempster's white bread on the right. Let's look at the nutrition facts table. So as we can see, let's dissect this. Let's put our investigator hats on. First and foremost, we are comparing apples to oranges. So the serving sizes are not the same. They need to be the same before we can assess the rest of the information provided. With Carbonate, we're looking at one slice. With Dempster's, we're looking at two slices. Honestly, it doesn't matter how you slice this up. If you want, you can either double up the Carbonate, so times everything by 2, so that we're comparing 2 slices to 2 slices. So if you're somebody who typically uses 2 slices of bread to make a sandwich, maybe you'll double the Carbonate. If you have maybe a smaller appetite, and typically when you're eating bread, you have 1 slice, then you could divide the Dempsters and all of the nutritionals. Typically, when I have a sandwich, I have 2 slices of bread, so we're going to double up the Carbonate bread so that we're comparing apples to apples here, or breads to breads, I should say. So now let's look at calories. So once we've doubled up the Carbonate side of things, we can see that there's not a huge difference between the Carbonate bread and the Dempster's bread. Carbonate at 160 calories, Dempster's at 170. So not a big difference there. Let's look at fiber. So for the Carbonate white bread, we can see 1 slice has a percent daily value of 25. However, we're doubling everything. So the percent daily value for 2 slices of Carbonate bread is actually 50%. Whereas with the Dempster's bread, we see 2 slices is 1 gram of fiber, which is equal to a percent daily value of 4%. Last but not least, we'll look at protein. We can see protein for 1 slice of Carbonate is 7 grams, but we're going to double it. That's now 14 grams for the 2 slices of Carbonate white bread. Whereas with Dempster's, the 2 slices are 6 grams of protein. So my question to the audience: which bread would we purchase knowing the differences in nutrient needs when we're looking and we're talking about lung health? Which of these 2 breads would you be selecting? Are we going with the Carbonate white bread, or are we going with the Dempster's white bread?
Oh, hi everyone, you can unmute and just jump in with your answer, whatever you think it is. From Facebook Live, we have 75% people saying the Dempsters and 25% saying the Carbonate.
Okay.
Tapan, Vida, did you have any guesses?
Tapan, do you have do you want to share your thoughts? Which bread do you think would be the more lung-friendly choice?
Well, lung friend, yeah, I have a bit of bias because I have been a Dempster bread fan for a long time. So there is my comments are going to be biased that I'm going to lean towards the Dempster because I like that bread.
Gotcha. So fair enough. So we kind of have a mixed bag here, but it seems like the stronger leaning is with the Dempster's white bread. I might ask as a follow-up to the individuals who believe it's Dempster's, why are you selecting Dempster's as your bread of choice, as the lung-friendly bread out of these two breads? Plead your case.
Okay, so it looks like most of the people that responded through Facebook Live are on OFEB. Their reasoning is it's better to limit the amount of fiber rather than increase the amount of protein. So they're looking at symptom management, side effects of the medication itself. While it's very important to increase your protein intake on OFEB, it's also really important to make sure you don't overdo it on fiber because it can lead to stomach upset. So their reasoning is by going for Dempsters, they're avoiding for stomach upset and they can add protein in elsewhere.
Oh, that is correct. Oh, that's perfect. Beautiful. That is the correct answer. So for those who selected Dempsters, that would be the right choice. For those who thought Carbonate, I can see why it's a little bit confusing because you're absolutely right. Protein is important, 100%. That's something that needs to be prioritized. However, remember with prepared foods, right, like breads or pastas, you can't take anything away from those foods. They are what they are. Whatever fiber they have, they have. Whatever protein they have, they have. Whatever fats they have, they have. You can't lessen those nutrients from a prepared product, but you can always add in, right? So keeping and selecting the one that is lowest in fiber is the right choice, because remember, when you're making a sandwich, you're probably going to add maybe some chicken or some tuna or maybe some eggs, right? And so you can bring in protein, right? But we can't take out the fiber that's in the carbonate bread. So that's why it is the more lung-friendly choice. Additionally, with the Dempsters, we didn't go through that, but it's also the one that's highest in iron and the lowest in fat, which maybe for you is something that is important for you to consider. So that's also a nice added bonus. So yay, good job. Let's try another one. So who doesn't love pancakes on a early Saturday morning, right? I love pancakes. So which pancake is going to be the one we're going to go for? Are we going with the PC Organics pancake mix or the Flourish protein pancake mix? Let's see. And let's look at the food labels. So again, first things first, we need to look at the serving size. As you can see, they are not identical right now. There is a difference. With PC Organics, we're at 51 grams versus Flourish at 61 grams. So it's about a 15% difference. So we need to account for that. So when we're looking at, and what we'll do is we'll bump up the PC Organics to kind of match the Flourish pancake mix. So calorie-wise, at 15% bump will be close to 210 calories instead of the 180. So again, when we're looking and comparing from a calorie perspective, again, 10 calorie difference is not significant. They're basically on par. So no difference there. Let's investigate further. Let's look at the fiber. Fiber for the PC Organics sits at 4% daily value, whereas the Flourish is at 28, has a percent daily value of 28. However, PC Organics only has 5 grams of protein, but our Flourish has 23 grams of protein, tons of protein. And we can see if we look a little bit further at iron, which might be something that your doctor is suggesting that you prioritize a little bit more, you can see that they're both have quite a decent amount of protein, of iron. So we have 13% daily value for the PC Organic, so very close to that 15%. And then the iron with the Flourish is at 20%. So well above the 15%. So taking into account all the information provided there, which pancake mix are we going to go with? Which one is the lung-friendly choice? And I've also included some added information below there, which might sway your mind. In order to prepare the Flourish, you only need half a cup of water, whereas with the PC Organics, they do mention you have to add eggs, milk, and some butter.
Looks like Facebook Live is saying PC Organics, simply because it's added protein and it's less fiber. So same reasoning as last time.
Tapan, what are your thoughts?
I think the protein content in the Flourish pancake is leaning my decision that way for preference.
So you're feeling, there's so much protein in that Flourish pancake.
Yeah.
So you're thinking it's the lung-friendly choice.
Right. And I'm also wondering, maybe you might have an idea as an expert, what is added there that protein is 23 grams? Is it dairy? Is it what is there to make that much of protein differentiation?
You know what? That's a really good question. I didn't look at the ingredients list of Flourish. You know what? I'm just out of experience with a lot of these products that have this increased protein. Usually they're adding either sometimes it's some type of whey protein, some type of pea protein that they're adding into the mix. And that's what allows it to be so high in protein. So there's usually some type of additive, and I'm on the Amazon website right now as we talk, and it is a whey protein concentrate.
Okay.
That they've added into the mix that allows it to be this high in protein. Great question, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's find out who's right. And again, there's nobody wrong. It's all learning, right? But again, for those who picked the PC Organics, you have selected the lung-friendly choice. Remember, as in a lot of these products, are out there to kind of maybe sway you, and protein is important, but what's equally important for you guys is keeping the fiber low. We can always add protein. We can't take fiber away when it's high. So the one that's lowest in fiber, because that is a goal of ours, is to keep fiber low, is the right choice. And then I did try to kind of give you guys a little bit of a hint in that with the PC Organics, they've, as part of the direction, they have indicated, you know, you need to add an egg, you need to add half a cup of milk and butter. And if you guys know, you know, eggs and milk are a source of protein. So that's
Yes.
going to change the landscape, right, of this product. So if we're thinking about the mix itself, it's sitting about 6 grams of protein when we adjust for that 15% difference. When you add that one egg, you're actually adding an additional 7 grams of protein. And there's no fiber in eggs, which is great because we don't want more fiber. So now we're at 13 grams of protein. When you add that half cup of milk, which is also part of the directions to prepare, we're adding another 4.5 grams of protein, 0 fiber. Yay, we're happy. So now we're at 17.5 grams of protein. Still with that percent daily value of fiber of 4%. So still low fiber. Yay. So not that far off from that Flourish pancake. Now, if you want to be super savvy, what some of you might do is say, you know what? That milk, let me swap it for this protein shake that I have. So if you were to swap the milk for a protein shake, and specifically I'm using a protein shake, the one I have on the screen happens to be the nutrition plan by Fairlife, which has 30 grams of protein. That half cup of protein shake is actually equal to 10 grams of protein. So now we have the 6 from the mix, 7 grams from the egg, that brings us to 13, plus 10 grams brings us to 23, on par with the Flourish. Yet
Right.
we're able to keep protein low, exactly the way that we wanted. So you've, rejigged this and made it as high in protein as the Flourish. So these are little things that you can do, but again, if you selected the PC Organics, you are on the mark. And for those who got a little bit confused, again, you can always add, but we can't take away. So fiber first, and then we try to kind of jostle protein around to get it to where we want it to be. Okay, so I hope you guys found those 2 exercises helpful, or hopefully it was a nice refresher. Let's move on now to what we can do if we have these beloved recipes that we love, but we want to make it more lung friendly. How can we swap out some of these ingredients that we know really aren't serving us, but we can still enjoy some of the recipes that we like? Let's dissect things a little bit further. So I selected a recipe from the website Ugly Vegan Kitchen, and they have this lovely, I was going through the recipe and I said to myself, oh my God, this is so yummy. A lemony Greek wheat berry salad. And you're thinking, you know what? I want to make this for my family, but let me see what I can do to tweak it so that it's in better alignment with my lung health goals. So let's go ingredient by ingredient. So the first swap I would make if I was concerned and I wanted to make it more lung friendly. For those who are familiar, wheat berries are great. They're high fiber, which, for for a lot of people, that's something that they prioritize is high fiber, but we're on the other end of the spectrum. So we would maybe swap out the wheat berries for white rice. Then we have red onions and garlic. So if for some of you who have acid reflux or the more chronic case, you have GERD, if onions and garlic are a trigger, we would obviously opt out of that. So we would remove that from this recipe. The olive oil is great. So we would want to keep that in, and there's not too much of it. So even better. Then we have lemon juice and we have white wine vinegar. Again, acidic foods tend to be GERD triggers. So we would actually remove the lemon juice and vinegar. But if you're somebody who enjoys that tang of lemon and vinegar, what I would recommend, which is a more GERD friendly option, or an acid reflux, better for acid reflux, would be sumac. So sumac is, it's in fact a berry. You know, I actually learned something new today because I went to research it. Sumac is actually a berry that it has a very lemony flavor. It's very popular in Mediterranean cuisine. You could swap out the lemon juice and the white wine vinegar for sumac. So that would be a great swap. If we continue, we have oregano, we have parsley. Awesome. You know, especially if you need something to awaken your taste buds, you know, add those herbs. So we're keeping that. Then we have chickpeas. So chickpeas or beans, nuts and seeds in general, they kind of straddle the line. They're a source of protein, but they're also a source of fiber. So what we might do in this case, because who doesn't love chickpeas? What we might do is do half a can of chickpeas and then replace the rest with something that is a more of a pure protein source. So if you had leftover chicken, or if you had a can of tuna, we could add that. So by cutting the chickpeas in half, we're able to reduce the fiber a little bit. And by adding the chicken, increase the protein, because the protein in chicken and tuna is a lot more than what you'd find in beans or legumes. If we continue, we see tomatoes. We have cucumbers, we keep that. We have peppers, we keep that. But the tomatoes, they also are or can be a GERD trigger. So you might want to replace that if tomatoes are problematic for you. And you could replace it with any other vegetable, like any vegetable that you enjoy. I put carrots, but really could be anything, right? Grated carrots would go nicely in the salad, but really it's your choice. The Kalamata olives, we are keeping those. The feta cheese, yum. So with feta cheese, you might opt for a lower fat version if that's something that's important for you. And then last but not least, if black pepper is a trigger for you, then we would omit that and just add in the salt. So with a few of those tweaks, you can see that we've been able to lower fiber, increase protein, and get rid of some ingredients that may be GERD triggers. And again, I just want to emphasize, you only need to remove the ingredients that are problematic for you. So I know for some people with GERD, you know, lemon juice isn't an issue, or onions and garlic aren't an issue. If they're not an issue for you, then keep them in by all means. This is just highlighting some that can be common GERD triggers, and if they happen to be for you, then you can kind of either omit them or make those necessary swaps. Okay, so I hope you found that helpful, and you know, you'll use those same strategies to kind of look at recipes that you have. Last but not least is the recipe that we're going to make tonight as part of the food demo, which is an oatmeal flax chocolate chip muffin. And while I set up for the demo, I want you guys to think, what changes might you make to this recipe to make it more lung friendly? Okay, well, I hope you've had enough time to look at the recipe, consider some of the changes that you might make. And I'm just going to stop sharing and come to the screen, and we'll do this together. Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So we had that recipe for the oatmeal flax chocolate chip recipe, and I'm just going to grab the recipe as well so I can see it and we can follow along. And then I'm going to share with you the changes that I've made to this recipe. And this recipe I got from a website called truffleandtrends.com. So I'm just going to pan down. Here we go, so that you can see what I'm doing. So first things first, the first ingredient was whole wheat flour, or is whole wheat flour. And so instead of using whole wheat flour, I'm choosing to use white. And by making that swap, I'm able to reduce the amount of fiber. So I'm going to add that. And so for this recipe, guys, dry in one bowl, wet in another, and then we'll combine afterwards. The recipe also calls, and sorry, it's a little bit bright here, I hope you can see. I have oatmeal. So this oatmeal, although it does provide, it is a source of fiber, we are going to just keep it as is. So I'm going to add that to my bowl. The next ingredient is sugar. And so again, if too much sugar is a problem, you could reduce the sugar if you want, but I'm going to keep it. For most people, it's not problematic, but if it is for you, then by all means, you can make that adjustment. Whoopsie daisy. The other swap that I'm making here is, and I don't know if you can tell what this is. So instead of flax seeds, I'm using shelled hemp hearts. And the reason why I swapped the flax for hemp is for two reasons. So some of you might know that hemp and flax are both a source of omega-3 fats, which is great because it helps with inflammation. However, the way that they differ is that flaxseed is high in fiber, whereas shelled hemp hearts are low. On top of that, hemp is also quite high in protein compared to flaxseed. So by making this swap, we're able to win on both fronts. We're able to reduce the fiber and increase the protein. So and make sure, because when you're purchasing hemp seeds, you can buy them shelled or unshelled. You want to make sure we're buying the shelled hemp seeds. The ones that still have the shell intact are high in fiber, which is not what we're looking for. So I have most of my dry ingredients. Last but not least, in this little container, which is again a little bit bright, sorry for the brightness, guys, I have my baking soda, my baking powder, as well as a little bit of salt. And I'm not swapping anything here, so I'm going to just add that in. And let's give this a quick stir.
Sarah, I just had a question from the Facebook Live
Yes.
participants. They are wondering how to store hemp seeds.
Ooh, good question. So if you can, I would store it either in your refrigerator, or I know some people will even put it in the freezer. I store mine typically in my fridge. And the reason that this is a good question, and why I think the person is asking this, so hemp seeds are very high in and are a good source of omega-3 fats. So fats, when they stay outside, can get rancid, right? And so by storing them, we can extend the shelf life. So that would be my recommendation. So I'm just giving this a good stir. My brown sugar is a little bit hard, so I'm just crushing a few of them, and then we'll move over to the wet ingredients. I think this is pretty good. Okay, perfect. So we have our dry. Let's do our wet. And again, I'm just going to get the ingredients. So first things first, I'm going to grab an egg. Now you might be wondering, well, Sarah, how come you haven't told us how much we need for this recipe? There is a handout. I don't know if Jamie already has it circulating.
So it is going to be included in the newsletter as well as posted after this session. We just had one of our moderators unfortunately have to miss a meeting unexpectedly, and she actually has the download file for it.
Gotcha.
But she'll give me access within 24 hours, so we should be able to get it to you guys shortly.
Perfect. So I'm actually doing half of the recipe, which you'll get, which actually calls for half an egg. So the recipe calls for half an egg, so I'm actually just going to take a little bit out. And I'm doing this by eye. So I have my half an egg here. The next thing, that same swap that we saw with the pancake mix, we're going to utilize here. Instead of using milk, I'm going to use a protein shake so that I can bump up the protein content of our muffins. So I'm going to kind of, I'm not promoting any product in particular, guys, but I found this really interesting protein shake. I believe it was at Popeyes that I found it. And I'm just going to show it here on the screen. It is really fantastic. Oftentimes, the highest amount in protein you can find is about 30, but this one is 40 grams of protein for this protein shake. And what's great about it is that it has only 1 gram of fiber in this whole container, and you're getting the 40 grams. So interesting product out there that you could maybe try yourselves. So for this, we're going to add to our eggs I'm going to add half a cup, but the recipe calls for 1 whole cup. So I'm going to add that in.
Sarah, just a question. If I were to substitute, say, Greek yogurt for the milk or the protein shake, would that wreck the muffin's consistency, or is there a way to maybe loosen it up, say, using, say, like buttermilk?
Yeah, great question. So one of the swaps that I actually make in this recipe, which is optional, is instead of using the oil, so this recipe calls for a 1/3 cup of oil. Instead of using oil, I use Greek yogurt as well. So I swap it out. Now, very good question. If I was to do a swap like that, how does it impact the end product? It does impact it. So I've made this recipe in preparation for this session. What I found is when I use the oil, that I get a more traditional looking muffin. So it's a little bit, it has a nice little bump on it, nice little curve to it, like you would see in a traditional muffin. However, when I use the Greek yogurt, inside is still very well cooked. So it's not wet or anything like that, but the muffin is a little bit more flat. It's a little bit more dense. So depending on what you prefer, and remember, all of these swaps that I'm doing, you could choose only one of these swaps, or you could choose all of the swaps. You decide, right? I'm just kind of showing you kind of to the nth degree, if we were to swap a lot of these ingredients, you know, what we could achieve. But by all means, you may decide only to swap one ingredient or two. And if for you, like you prefer kind of a muffin with a nice little top to it, well-rounded, then by all means, what I would suggest is don't substitute the oil for Greek yogurt, use oil.
Sarah,
Yes.
the protein shake that you showed us, you found that at Popeyes the restaurant or Popeyes the supplement place?
The supplement place.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify because I'm like, which one?
Sure. Yeah, not Popeye's chicken.
Okay.
Popeye's the supplement store, correct.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Lovely. So I'm gonna, like I said, depending on what your preference is, for me, I care about how food looks, but as long as it tastes good, if I can maximize protein, I'm probably gonna go for that. And so for this recipe, I'm actually going to substitute the oil for the Greek yogurt. So I'm gonna just grab that now. And what I would recommend is that you use plain Greek yogurt. There's enough sugar in this recipe that we don't really need to add any more. So I'm just going to grab my measuring, and I'm going to put my Greek yogurt. Make sure I have a nice level spoon. Press it down, make sure. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm just going to add that to my wet ingredients. Oopsie daisy. And then once I've added this into my wet ingredients, I'm just going to give everything a nice little stir. So we're just going to take a quick second. The better tool for this probably isn't your fork. It would be a whisk, but so that I don't have to do too much in terms of cleaning, we're going to stick with the fork. So I'll just bring this up to the screen. Again, very bright. I have my lights on. My apologies. I have my
Sarah, I
wet.
just had a quick question from the
Yes.
Facebook Live participants. If they were to take a protein powder and mix it with the Greek yogurt, would that solve the issue of having a cakier or less muffiny muffin?
So that probably would be a solve. What I would even suggest is the flour. You reduce your flour by the same amount of the protein powder. And then you treat all of the other ingredients the same. That should definitely help. Absolutely. I would think that that would help.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thanks.
Okay. Perfect. So now we have our dry, we have our wet. Let's make a little well in here. And then I'm going to pour my wet. Oh, gosh, I just made the most rookie mistake. Does anybody know what rookie mistake I've made? 5 gold stars. I can't give you anything. 5 gold stars for the person who figures out what rookie mistake I've made. Let's see who the bakers are in the audience.
Well, Facebook Live, we've got a couple of people saying that you reverse the order and it should be dry into wet.
That's not the one I'm looking for. But either or is okay in terms of that.
Okay. All right. I will update the Facebook Live for that.
Okay. No, the rookie mistake I've made when you are baking, the very first thing to do is turn on your oven, preheat your oven. I forgot to preheat my oven. Okay, so now we have the base. Last but not least, we need to add our topping of sorts. The original recipe calls for semi-sweet chocolate. However, as some of you may or may not know, chocolate does contain caffeine. And so sometimes chocolate can be a GERD trigger. Like I said before, if it is not for you, then use regular chocolate. You know, you don't need to make the change. If you're really sensitive, then what I've opted for here, and I'm just going to put it in a bowl, and this is how we're getting our little festive twist. I found some white chocolate chips, red, green, and white, that we're going to be using. So this is white chocolate, and that's what we're going to be using. And I'm only going to use, the recipe calls for about a cup, but I don't like things that are overly sweet. So I'm going to do a little bit less. I'll do it. And I'm also doing half a recipe. I'm just going to do about 1/4 of a cup, and that should be good enough for me. So, and then I'm just going to mix that in. I'm making all the rookie mistakes today. Let's put this down, and I have my, so the original recipe does make a total of 12 to 15 muffins. So I'm doing a half batch to hopefully fit my 6 muffin tins. And remember, guys, we're aiming for 3/4 full, because remember, these are are going to rise. So you don't want to overfill. Oopsie daisy. Okay, that looks good. Really simple. I mean, I think this took us maybe what, 15 minutes to bang out some delicious muffins. Okay,
Sarah, I've got a
so
question here about making the batter ahead of time and freezing it, or alternatively freezing the muffins.
yeah,
Are
freeze
these
the muffins.
freezer friendly?
Yeah, freeze the muffins once you've cooked them already, as opposed to freezing the batter. Because remember, we have leavening agents that are going to lose their potency if you freeze the batter. So you'll want to, if you're interested in freezing, make them, bake them, and then freeze. Okay, so to add a little bit more Christmas cheer, I'm using maraschino cherries here, and I'm just letting them drain on a paper towel. And I'm going to make these look like hollies. And I have some pumpkin seeds that I'm just going to lay, kind of give them that holly-esque look. This is probably the most time-consuming bit of it all. So really simple, guys, and really simple changes that, or ingredient swaps that we're doing here. To take a recipe, and you can do this with, you know, recipes that you have, that you know and love, and play around with them a little bit and try to make some of those swaps. Okay. So kind of looks holly-ish. So here we go. I have my maraschino cherry that's looking like part of the holly, and then I'm using pumpkin seeds for the leaves of the holly, and I've just laid that right beside it. And so now this is going into my oven. And guys, when we're baking these muffins, do not bake at the bottom, bake them at the top. If you bake them on the bottom, they're going to get brown really, really quick. They're going to over brown. So make sure that you're cooking them at the top of your oven. And now with the magic of, well, it's not television, but here we go. I'll show you. Oh, actually, I should have kept it down so you guys can see. And here we go. These are what the muffins look like. And these muffins are, as you can see, they're a little bit flat topped. And that's because I used the Greek yogurt with these ones that I made. But if you want them to be, again, a little bit more rounded, like a more traditional muffin, then by all means, you can use oil instead of the Greek yogurt. And I'll just break one open so you can see the inside. These ones I put maraschino cherries throughout as well. So you can look, if you see that, it's not wet. It's still very soft on the inside, just a little bit denser, but still very, very delicious. So I hope that, I chose a baking recipe in particular, as opposed to say that salad recipe. Making the swaps for the salad is very easy, right? Because unlike baking is a bit of a science, right? So if things aren't quite right, they can go haywire. Whereas whenever we're cooking a dish, it's a little bit more forgiving. But I hope you can see we've made these swaps, and now we have, some really nice muffins where we've been able to really increase the protein in a significant way by swapping out the flaxseed for hemp, swapping out the milk for the protein powder, right? We've been able to also introduce the Greek yogurt in place of the oil. So all of those things help us to improve the protein content of these muffins. And we've also been able to drop the fiber by swapping out the whole wheat flour for white. We also, in changing the flax seed to the hemp, the shelled hemp, we were able to reduce the fiber as well. And then what else did we do? We did one other swap that helped with the fiber, and I can't remember. Trying to think of the ingredients. Well, we had at least those two from what I can remember. So hopefully this is really helpful for you. Hopefully there was a few takeaways. And if you guys have any questions, feel free. We're a little bit over time, but I don't mind staying for another 5 minutes if people have questions.
Okay, so we did have a question in the chat. Vita, go ahead.
I was curious. Are you asking? I have another question. I have used sourdough bread. Where does that rate on the scale?
Sourdough can be made in a lot of different ways. Typically, sourdough is a lower fiber product, but I've seen some sourdoughs that are actually higher in fiber. So it really, are you making your sourdough from scratch, or are you purchasing it?
I buy it from Cobb's Bakery.
Okay, so the nutritionals should be available for Cobb's. So if you ask the Cobb employee, ask them, what can I get the nutrition facts for the sourdough? And you can check to make sure that the fiber is appropriate. But typically most sourdough breads tend to be lower in fiber. So, 8 out of 10, my guess would be you'd be fine to stay with your sourdough, but double check.
I will. Thank you. You've been great,
welcome.
by the way. You've been great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we've got one more question here from the Facebook Live group.
Sure.
We have a question about, I have pulmonary fibrosis and diabetes. My spouse has diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. How do I modify my my recipes so that we can all enjoy it, so I'm not making separate food every time for everybody in the house, because I also have a child with celiac disease?
Yeah, so you're the perfect example. I mean, we don't have time for me to go through all of the different things that I would need to consider. You need a counseling session with a dietitian so that your underlying conditions can be assessed, while also considering the other people in the household and their restrictions in terms of certain nutrients as well. So a family counseling session with a dietitian would be very helpful, so that you know exactly how you can prepare foods that are going to meet most people's needs. Definitely, just at first glance, in terms of hearing some of the different things that are going on with you, with your spouse, with your child, definitely there might be some portion of the meal that you can make that everybody can enjoy, but there's going to be some things that are going to be a little bit individual, because some of these things are a little bit push and pull. So it's not going to be, for example, I won't be able to tell you like, okay, here's a pasta meal that's going to be appropriate for everybody. There's going to be some things that you can prepare. So maybe, for example, the meatballs that you're making, maybe for your spaghetti dish, that's something that everybody can enjoy. But maybe the pasta choice is going to be a little bit different, right? So it's definitely, there's a lot of different things at play. And even beyond the underlying conditions, there's other things as a dietitian that we look at to assess what recommendations we might make. So you would definitely benefit from maybe booking an appointment with a dietitian, or even speaking with your doctor. I mean, with the number of underlying conditions that are floating around, your doctor probably can give you a referral to a dietitian, which hopefully would be free of cost to you, right? So.
All right, thanks. I think we've got time for one more question. Rita, Tevin, did you have any other questions or comments?
No, I'm good. I think learn something that is, in having high fiber food was a desired goal for the first 70 years of my life or 68 years of my life, and now is changing it around. It's a cultural adjustment as well that we need to. So I think this is very, very eye-opening for me.
Good. And yeah,
All right, so
yes.
there's no more questions, it seems. All the information that we discussed will be available after the meeting, as well as the original recipes and the swaps that Sarah mentioned. I'm probably the first one to say thank you, Sarah, so much for taking the time to go through this with us. It was really informative. I actually learned a fair number of things that I didn't know, so that's always good. I'll let you go. Have a great holiday, everybody, and we will see you in the new year.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry
You too,
Christmas.
thanks.
Happy
Bye.
holidays. Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye now.